Wake up, loser. I wasn't dreaming. That voice was real, too real. The sharp knock of a shoe against the side of the bed confirmed it. I opened my eyes to see a man I didn't recognize standing at the foot of my bed, in my house, smirking like he owned the damn place. Tall, built like a gym rat who skipped leg day, shirtless under an open flannel, tattoos crawling up his neck. He looked down on me like I was a stray dog he'd just run over and was too bored to bury. Start packing, he said, tapping his knuckles against the bedroom wall. I already picked a spot for the grill. I didn't move. My head was buzzing. Was this a prank? A nightmare? Some twisted show? Then I heard her laugh. Not a nervous laugh. Not a scared, surprised, or ashamed one. A full-on giggle. Like I was the punchline to some inside joke. I turned my head and saw her, Amanda, my wife, in one of my shirts, barefoot, holding a mug of coffee like it was just another Sunday morning. Her hair was messy in that freshly used kind of way, and she didn't even flinch. Amanda, I said, voice dry as dust. Who the hell is this? She shrugged. Relax, Carter. This is Chase. Chase. That name hit like a bad aftertaste. And the way she said it, like I was the outsider crashing their weekend getaway. I stood up slowly. I didn't rush, didn't shout, didn't even blink too hard. Just let the silence stretch as I locked eyes with him. He grinned wider, like I was supposed to feel small in that moment. You got 3 seconds to walk back out that door, Chase, I said, before you find out what happens when someone breaks into a lion's den thinking it's a petting zoo. He laughed. Nah, man, you don't get it. I'm not just here. I live here now. Amanda sipped her coffee. I told you I wanted a real man, Carter. I stepped forward, close enough that he couldn't fake confidence anymore, close enough to see the sweat bloom under his cocky exterior. I run this place, I said low, calm, cutting. Now you work for me, or I destroy your world. It wasn't a threat. It was a sentence. He flinched, just slightly, but I saw it. Amanda's smirk wavered, and then I walked right past him, grabbed my phone, and started dialing. What are you doing? She snapped, putting the mug down fast. Starting the timer. For what? For your collapse. That's when things stopped being funny. He tried to speak. I raised a hand. One more word, and you'll be scrubbing blood off your Jordans. He backed up. Amanda followed me down the hallway, sputtering, asking questions with that entitled tone only the unfaithful ever master. Carter, don't be dramatic. Dramatic? I chuckled. You let your side piece wake me up in my own house like I'm some squatter, and I'm dramatic? You were never there for me. I stopped and turned. Say one more lie, Amanda. Just one. And I swear to God, you'll be wishing you'd stayed silent like the snake you've become. Silence. That silence. It wasn't just heavy. It was nuclear. What happened next? Well, let's just say everyone who saw it didn't blink for a full minute. And Amanda? Her face turned ghost white the moment I opened the front door. Because I wasn't bluffing. I had planned for this. Not this exact moment, but the day I'd finally had enough of the lies. The gaslighting. The fake tears. The twisted mind games. And I wasn't about to let her win the battle she didn't know I'd already started preparing for. You see, when a man keeps receipts, they become weapons. And I was fully armed. 2 weeks before that morning with Chase, I found a hotel key in Amanda's purse. Not a card. A key. One of those vintage-looking brass ones, like from an old-school inn. The kind that screams, this wasn't a business trip. She claimed it was from some antique-themed event her friend Michelle dragged her to. I nodded, smiled, let her ramble. But something in her eyes flickered that day. And that flicker? That was enough. So I started watching. Not like some paranoid stalker. I didn't trail her car or hack her phone. I just observed, measured, noted the small things. The perfume she never used before. The way she suddenly wore makeup just to go get gas. The gym sessions that lasted 3 hours when she never even liked the gym. The girls' nights that ended with her stumbling in at 2 a.m., cheeks flushed and breath smelling like whiskey and someone else's toothpaste. So I adapted, upgraded, installed a second SIM, planted a mic in her car's USB charger, synced our home security system to a hidden cloud. I wasn't planning revenge yet. I was preparing for war. Quietly, methodically. And then came the text. You still wet from earlier? Smiling face with horns, my bed's ready if you're not too sore. It hit at 11:34 p.m. while she was in the shower. Her phone buzzed and lit up across the nightstand. I didn't even have to guess. It was Chase. The same Chase who would later tap me awake like I was the damn help. I took a screenshot, airdropped it to my laptop, and sat there in silence. I wasn't angry yet. Not really. I was awake. Finally. That night, I didn't sleep. I made backups of everything. Emails, texts, GPS history, even receipts from her Venmo account where she sent tips to a user named @GrillDaddy84. I'm not joking. That's what he called himself. The irony? I bought that grill last Father's Day. She said it was to celebrate the man of the house. Now Chase was claiming it as his own. The twist? I'm not just some pushover husband. I'm not the guy you cheat on and humiliate and expect to crumble. I run logistics for a Fortune 500 company. I build contingency plans for disasters most people never even imagine. So I made mine. Lawyered up. Quietly froze joint accounts. Changed my will. Had a locksmith ready. Even opened a new LLC in my name only, tied to a side project Amanda didn't even know existed, despite it using our house as its business address. Legally, that made her the tenant, and that gave me rights she couldn't contest. I waited until she crossed the line fully, until I saw them on the hidden cam in our bedroom. Yes, our bedroom, laughing, drinking, and making out like horny teenagers on stolen time. I saved the video. That's when I set the trap. Invited my brother Logan over the following weekend. Told him to bring his camera gear and act like he was filming a real estate walkthrough for his YouTube channel. Amanda thought nothing of it. Even smiled and offered to stage the kitchen with some wine glasses. She had no idea the whole house was wired. I wanted the world to see what I already knew. But more than that, I wanted her to know that I saw everything. That I had let her bury herself. By the time Chase tapped me awake with that smug little smirk, I had already triggered the upload. Security footage, screenshots, even a nice montage set to her favorite Adele song. It was all waiting in an email scheduled to blast at noon to her family, her boss, her closest friends. And the subject line? Since you love surprises, Amanda. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to fight. I was calm. Because when you set fire to a kingdom someone tried to steal from you, you make sure they're the ones holding the match. Noon struck. I was sitting at the kitchen island, stirring my coffee as Amanda's phone dinged once, then again, then 12 more times in rapid fire. She glanced at the screen, and her face drained faster than a deflating balloon. "What the hell did you do?" she asked, voice cracking as she picked up her phone. Chase leaned over her shoulder, squinting. "Why are your parents calling you like crazy?" She didn't answer. She was too busy scrolling. Her pupils bounced like they were chasing flies. Then came the scream. "You psychotic piece of garbage," she roared at me, slamming her phone on the counter so hard the case cracked. "You sent them everything?" I didn't look up from my mug. "Correction. I sent you everything. They were just CC'd." She came storming over, finger pointed at my face like she was some cheap courtroom drama actress. "Do you know what you've done?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I gave people the truth you never had the guts to tell." Chase stepped between us, puffing out his chest like he was auditioning to be a dollar store version of The Rock. "You crossed a line, bro," he said. I stood up. Slowly. Deliberately. "Don't ever call me bro." He flinched again. For all his muscles, Chase had the backbone of a boiled noodle. Amanda started crying. Not the remorseful kind. Not even embarrassed. Just angry. Because the spotlight was no longer on her terms. "I'll sue you. I'll say you violated my privacy." I shrugged. Footage was recorded in my house. On my equipment. Under a lease signed by me. "Try it. Your lawyer will quit halfway through the intake call." Her tears stopped. She knew I was right. And that made her even angrier. "You were never a man," she hissed. "That's why I needed someone like him." "You needed someone dumb enough not to read the fine print," I replied. Because what I hadn't mentioned yet, what neither of them realized, was that the business I registered under my name, the one tied to our home address, it wasn't just a shell. It was a full S-corp. And thanks to Amanda's little habit of using our shared Wi-Fi to send those steamy photos and transfer cash to Chase's landscaping business, the company now had solid grounds to claim fraud. I had already spoken to an attorney. If I wanted, I could sue Chase for interference, Amanda for breach of fiduciary duty, and if I was feeling generous, just blacklist them from ever opening a joint account again. I turned to Chase. "You said you picked out a spot for the grill?" He nodded slowly, confused. "Yeah, backyard, near the deck." I walked over to the fridge, pulled out 2 steaks, and handed them to him. "Then fire it up." Since you want to play house, cook like you live here. Amanda looked like she was about to faint. What are you doing? Giving your boy a taste of domestic life. You wanted this. You chose him? Then this is your world now. I walked toward the door. She called after me. Where the hell are you going? I turned back once, just once, and locked eyes with her. To my brother's place. Where there's no cameras, no liars, no clowns pretending to be alpha. And then I left them there, in the ashes of their little fantasy, while the smell of burning steaks started creeping through the walls. They thought they broke me, but they hadn't seen me rebuild yet. Logan opened the door before I even knocked. He must have been watching the feed from my security system. My brother always had a sixth sense for chaos, and this was no different. You look like you just walked out of a fire, he said, stepping aside. I did, I replied, dropping my overnight bag on the floor. We didn't speak much at first, just sat on his balcony with 2 whiskeys and the kind of silence that only brothers know how to share. So, he finally asked, was it worth it? I thought for a second. It wasn't about worth. It was about truth. She wanted a circus. I gave her front row seats. Logan laughed under his breath. Damn right you did. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind was on overdrive. Not because I missed Amanda. God, no. But because I knew what came next. The storm. The spin. The pity party she'd start throwing for herself once the reality settled in. Amanda wasn't the type to admit guilt. She was the type to rewrite the story until she was the victim and I was the villain. By morning, I was right. My phone buzzed with a notification from Facebook. Amanda Green posted a status. When someone you trust turns into your worst nightmare, you realize love was never real. Prayers appreciated. 1,000 likes. 200 stay strong, Queen comments. Half the town rushing to comfort the woman who just 24 hours ago had her side piece trying on my bathrobe. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't just cut deep. It humiliates you. It exposes you. And worst of all, it makes them look like the broken ones while you're left looking like a storm no one wants to understand. But I didn't respond. Not yet. I let her bask in the fake light. Let her build her little throne of lies. Because the higher she climbed, the harder she'd fall when the truth leaked wider. And it would. Because people talk. Neighbors whisper. Screenshots spread like wildfire. Especially when you mess with a man who spent his whole life keeping his reputation clean. But as much as the outside noise mattered, the real battle was inside me. The pain didn't hit like a punch. It was slower. Quieter. Like something eating me from the inside out. Amanda wasn't just a cheating wife. She was someone I once believed in. I had defended her to everyone who raised red flags. I ignored my gut when it screamed. I gave her everything. And in return, she gave another man the key to my world. I couldn't stop replaying it. The smirk on Chase's face, the sound of her laughter behind him, the way they acted like I was some old furniture being replaced by new trends. It burned. But pain has a funny way of becoming clarity. That morning, as I sipped my coffee and watched Amanda's fake sympathy posts stack up, I realized I didn't want her back. Not for an apology. Not for closure. Not even to feel right. I wanted something deeper. Peace. Not the kind you fake with weekend trips and half-healed wounds. The real kind. The one where your soul finally stops shouting at itself in the mirror. Logan looked over at me. You gonna let her keep painting you as the monster? He asked. I smiled for the first time in what felt like months. Not forever, I said. But for now, let her play victim. Let her throw her tantrums. I'm just getting started. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about evolution. And the man she cheated on? He died the moment she let another man wake him up with a tap and a smirk. 3 days passed before she called. I let it ring the first time. The second. The third. By the fourth, curiosity won. I answered, not with a word, just silence. Carter, Amanda said, her voice trembling. Not with sadness. No, that would have required something real. This was performance, mascara thick and dripping with false regret. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. You mean the part where you invited another man into my bed? I asked. Or the part where you tried to paint yourself as the victim after? Silence. I waited. She sighed. Chase, he's not what I thought he was. I nearly laughed. No kidding. You mean he's not a financially stable, emotionally intelligent adult who can handle the real world? No, she said softly. He's an idiot. That was probably the truest thing she'd said in months. He keeps asking me to pay for everything, she continued. He thought you'd be gone by now. He didn't know you'd fight back like that. Of course not, I said. Because he's used to stealing things he's too dumb to earn. She paused. I made a mistake. There it was. The line. The desperate little lifeline cheaters always throw when the walls start closing in. Mistake. No, Amanda, I said, voice low. Dropping a glass of wine on white carpet is a mistake. Forgetting to water the plants is a mistake. What you did, that was strategy. Planned, rehearsed, repeated. You didn't just cheat, you replaced me. She sniffed. Can't we just talk? In person. One last time. For what? To see if we can fix anything. And in that moment, I saw it all for what it was. Not love. Not guilt. Not even fear. It was survival. Her family had gone cold. Her boss, who got the email, put her on probation. Chase had turned into a leech with abs. She had burned a bridge, and now she was crawling back across the ashes hoping I'd pretend it never happened. But I wasn't the same man. That night, I stood in front of the mirror in Logan's bathroom and really looked at myself for the first time since it all went down. The bags under my eyes, the tightness in my jaw, the way my chest felt like it had been carrying a safe full of secrets. I let it go, all of it, because I realized something vital. Amanda never deserved the man I used to be. But the man I was becoming? She'd never even meet him. The next morning, I went downtown and signed the divorce papers. Clean. Simple. No negotiation. No theatrics. I even left her the furniture. Let her decorate her ruin with the same couch she giggled on with Chase. Then I opened a new bank account, booked a solo weekend trip, cut my hair, bought a new suit, rented a studio loft, rebuilt from nothing, not because I had to, but because I could. It was intoxicating. You don't realize how much dead weight you carry until you finally drop it. People started noticing. Coworkers complimented the new look. Strangers smiled more. Logan said I stood taller. Even my reflection seemed to lean in closer, like it finally respected me again. I wasn't just healing, I was rising. And all the while, Amanda kept calling. Voicemails turned from soft pleas to angry rants to silence. I never replied. Because some ghosts deserve to fade. And she was already disappearing. A week passed. Then too, Amanda's calls stopped. But the fallout didn't. I didn't have to lift a finger. The universe was doing the heavy lifting. My cousin Tyler, who worked part-time at a local car dealership, texted me. Dude, Amanda's been trying to trade in your car. Says it's hers. LOL. I had to laugh. The car's title was in my name. Another thing she never paid attention to, like loyalty. She thought she could rebuild her life off mine. But without my support, Amanda's world was nothing but duct tape and drama. Chase. Oh, Chase was already halfway out the door. A mutual friend, well, ex-friend now, saw him at a bar with another woman just 3 nights after I left. He wasn't even subtle. Amanda had given him shelter, food, money, her body, and still, he wandered. Because that's what bottom feeders do. They follow the scent of new bait. I got the footage from a buddy at the bar who worked security. Sent it to Amanda with no message. Just the video. Her reaction? One emoji. Broken heart. Cute. I didn't respond. By the end of the month, the image she spent years curating was shredded. Her boss cut her hours. Her friends stopped defending her. Her own sister unfollowed her on Instagram. The queen of manipulation had run out of pawns. Meanwhile, I was glowing up. I hit the gym hard. Not because I wanted a revenge body, but because it gave me focus. Every weight I lifted felt like a piece of her getting lighter on my back. Every drop of sweat rinsed her lies off my skin. I started journaling again. Cold showers. Long drives with no destination. New books. New playlists. I started sleeping through the night without checking her side of the bed. I was free. Then came the final blow. Something I hadn't even orchestrated. Amanda's dad reached out to me. He was a tough man. The kind of guy who only ever spoke in nods and disappointed looks. He called while I was having coffee with Logan. Carter, he said, I just want to say I'm sorry. I paused. Sir, I raised a daughter who thought lying was love. That's on me. I didn't know what to say. I felt a lump rise in my throat. She told us her side, he continued. But after seeing the evidence you sent, well, she's living in our guest room now. You took her in? For now? Until she figures it out. I didn't ask what figures it out meant. He sighed. You didn't deserve any of this. I cleared my throat. I appreciate that. Then he said something that shook me. If you ever find someone better, someone who knows what loyalty looks like, don't hold back just because Amanda couldn't match your standard. That stuck with me. It was the first time someone outside of my inner circle acknowledged the depth of the betrayal, not with pity, but with respect. After the call, Logan looked over and raised a brow. You okay? I nodded. I think I just got closure from the last person I expected it from. We clinked coffee mugs like they were whiskey glasses. In a strange, twisted way, Amanda had given me a gift. Not the betrayal itself, but what came after. The clarity, the strength, the rebirth. Because when someone sets fire to your life, you learn two things. What burns and what survives. And I was still standing that it was a quiet Sunday when I saw her again. I was walking out of a bookstore downtown, one I'd never been to before. The kind with creaky wood floors, jazz playing faintly in the background, and an owner who looked like he hadn't left since the 80s. I had a novel in one hand and a coffee in the other, and for the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about her. And that's when she appeared. Amanda. She was crossing the street, hair tied up in a messy bun, wearing the same coat I bought her last Christmas. The one she swore was too expensive and too much. Now it looked like armor, but it didn't hide the truth. She looked tired. Not physically, not entirely, but you could see it in her posture. The slump, the absence of that smug, cruel confidence. She spotted me before I could duck away. Our eyes locked. She crossed the street and walked straight up to me. Hey, she said. Not cold, not friendly, just real. I said nothing. She gave a weak smile. You look different. I am. A beat of silence. I heard you finalized everything, she said. I nodded. A month ago. She looked down. Guess I deserve that. You guessed right. She swallowed hard. Can we talk? Why? I don't know, she said, her voice cracking. I guess I miss what we had. That sentence hung in the air like fog. Heavy, unwanted, and impossible to ignore. What we had, I said slowly. Amanda, you set fire to what we had. Then you danced in the ashes. She flinched. Not dramatically, just enough to let me know it hit. I know, she whispered. I've been trying to figure out why I did it. Why I let it get so far. You were bored, I said. And you thought I'd never walk. You thought I'd always play the good guy while you tested the limits of how far you could push me. She didn't argue. That was the worst part. She just nodded. Chase is gone, she said after a moment. Good. He was always a temporary tattoo you mistook for a masterpiece. She chuckled softly. You always had the sharpest lines. I took a step back. Not physically, emotionally, internally. Because part of me, the part that once loved her, wanted to say more. Wanted to dig into her pain. Ask questions. Peel the layers. But the man I was now, he had nothing left to prove. You don't get to miss me, Amanda, I said. You don't get to look back and pretend we were some great tragedy. You had loyalty, love, stability, and you threw it out because a man with a six-pack made you feel like a teenager again. She blinked. I'm sorry. I'm not, I replied. Because losing you gave me everything I never knew I needed. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Just that hollow stare of someone realizing they were never the victim, they were the storm. I hope you find peace, I said. I really do. But don't look for it in me. Then I turned and walked away. Not rushed. Not dramatic. Just done. I didn't look back. Not even once. And that, right there, that's when I knew. I wasn't healing anymore. I was healed. 2 months later, I stood on the rooftop of my new place. The city buzzed below, glowing in that warm, golden haze that only comes just before sunset. I leaned against the railing, drink in hand, watching the light dance across the buildings. Everything looked different now, not because the city had changed, but because I had. Peace wasn't loud. It didn't crash through my door or announce its arrival. It crept in slowly, through late-night walks, through silence that didn't feel empty anymore, through the simple joy of living without permission, apology, or fear. I hadn't spoken to Amanda since that day outside the bookstore. I didn't need to. That chapter was closed. Not slammed, not shredded, just sealed. Logan stopped by that evening. He brought 2 beers and a smirk. You know what day it is? He asked. I raised a brow. Should I? Exactly 1 year since she started seeing him. I blinked. You've been counting? Just curious. Wanted to see what healing really looked like after 365 days of hell. I nodded, took a sip, and exhaled. Looks like this. He clinked his bottle to mine. You beat it, man. It wasn't about beating her anymore. It was about beating the version of myself who would have stayed. The man who would have compromised, bent, folded just to hold on to something that was already broken. That guy was gone. In his place stood someone I didn't just recognize, I respected. I built new routines. My mornings started with a run, not arguments. I cooked meals for one with pride, not loneliness. I read more. I created. I dreamed again. And then, one day, I met someone. I wasn't looking. I wasn't chasing. I was just existing, and she was there. At a local art gallery. She made a joke about the wine being terrible, and I laughed harder than I had in months. Her name was Claire. She didn't ask about Amanda. She didn't care about my past trophies or scars. She asked about what made me feel alive. That night, we talked for hours. Not once did I think of the past. Not even when I told her pieces of it. Because she didn't feel like a replacement. She felt like freedom with a smile. And that was the biggest revelation of all. Amanda's betrayal didn't define me. It freed me. From illusions. From resentment. From the weight of pretending to be happy when I was just surviving. If I could speak to the man I was a year ago, the one who woke up to a stranger smirking in his own bedroom, I'd tell him this. It gets better. Not because they apologize. Not because you hurt them back. But because you rise. You rebuild. You take back your damn power. And to any man reading this who's been in my shoes, here's what I'd say. Don't beg. Don't chase. Don't waste your fire trying to light a cold heart. Instead, walk. Even if it hurts. Even if you're limping. Because one day, you'll stand on your own rooftop, with your own peace, your own story, and you'll look back not with bitterness, but with quiet pride. Not because they lost you, but because you found yourself. And that's the real ending. You're like a workhorse, easy to ride, she laughed in front of everyone. Her voice echoed through the courtroom like poison in my veins. I clenched my fists under the table. The judge blinked twice. The opposing attorney shifted uncomfortably in his chair. But she just leaned back in her seat, that smug look stretching across her face like she'd already won. Savannah, my wife, the woman I'd built a home for, bled for, sacrificed every damn dream for. And now, in front of strangers, lawyers, even my mother sitting 2 rows behind me, she was mocking me like I was just some dumb animal she'd finally ridden into the ground. I hadn't planned to say anything that day. I was going to let my lawyer do the talking. But when she threw those words out like daggers, something inside me snapped. I stood up. Savannah tilted her head, smirking. But when I took off my shirt, not for drama, but to reveal what her lover did to me that night, the entire courtroom gasped. Bruises. Purple, blue, still raw across my ribs. A long scar down my shoulder, freshly stitched. The result of walking in on something no man should ever see. It was 3 weeks before the circus. I had come home early from a business trip to San Diego. My flight landed 4 hours ahead of schedule. I wanted to surprise her. I remember texting her from the airport. Can't wait to see you. Hope you're home. She didn't reply, but I figured she was napping or at the gym. I should have known better. I pulled into the driveway. Her car was there. Good. The house lights were off. Even better. I thought I'd sneak in and wrap my arms around her while she was sleeping. Instead, I walked through the front door and heard music coming from upstairs. Not the soft R&B she usually listened to when relaxing. This was something heavier, faster, bass pumping through the walls. Confused, I crept up the stairs. That's when I heard it, her laugh. Not her fake, polite laugh for friends or Instagram stories. Her real one. Wild, breathless, the one I hadn't heard in months. And then came his voice. Damn, you're wild, Savannah. Shut up and keep going, she giggled. My chest tightened. My pulse raged. I stood frozen on the stairway, just out of sight of the bedroom door, which was wide open. And there she was, on top of a man. A younger man. Shirtless. Tattoos on his back. I'd never seen him before in my life. And there she was, riding him like she was chasing some twisted trophy. I wanted to scream. Fight. Die. But instead I backed up, barely breathing, and stepped on the loose floorboard I always meant to fix. Crack. The sound echoed like a shotgun. Her head whipped toward the door. Our eyes met. Time stopped. She didn't even try to cover herself. Didn't flinch. Didn't scream. She just looked at me, blinked once, and said, Guess you're home early. The guy scrambled, covering himself with a pillow. Man, I didn't know. I walked in. Calm. Too calm. You should leave, I told him. My voice sounded foreign, detached, like I wasn't even in my own body. He hesitated. Savannah rolled her eyes. Go, Jordan. I'll handle this. He bolted. And then she got up, no shame at all, wrapped herself in a towel, and walked past me like I was invisible. I was going to tell you, she muttered. I stood there, staring at the crumpled sheets, the used condom on the nightstand, the half-empty glass of wine on my dresser. I had never hit a woman in my life. And I didn't start that day. But God, I wanted to scream. Instead, I left. But that wasn't the end. That was just the first page of a war she didn't know she started. 3 weeks later, in that courtroom, after the mockery, after she called me a workhorse, after she said I was too boring to keep her entertained, I stood there half naked and let everyone see what her entertainment had done to me. A broken rib, claw marks down my side, and the scar from the beer bottle Jordan shattered when I confronted him in her apartment 2 nights after catching them. That's right. I went back. But not to beg. I went to destroy. She didn't expect me to show up at her apartment. Hell, I didn't expect it either. I'd spent the whole night sitting in my truck outside, heart thudding like a war drum, watching the lights flicker behind her bedroom blinds. Around 1 a.m., he pulled up in that piece of crap Dodge Charger. I waited 10 minutes after he went inside. I knew what they were doing. I could hear it, the rhythm of betrayal bouncing off those damn walls. I walked up the stairs, my palms sweating, knuckles itching. I didn't even knock. I kicked the door open. That flimsy lock never stood a chance. Jordan stumbled out of the bedroom, wearing just his boxers. Savannah screamed. Not in fear. No, it was annoyance. Like I was the one ruining her night. Oh my God, what is wrong with you? She snapped. What's wrong with me? I said, laughing like a man who'd finally snapped. What's wrong with me, Savannah? I just watched my wife fake an orgasm for a guy who probably doesn't even know her middle name. She wrapped the sheet around herself, trying to look dramatic. You're crazy, Damon. You need help. Crazy. I stepped forward. You think I'm crazy because I wanted a life with you? Because I paid off your student loans? Paid your dad's medical bills? You said you loved me. She rolled her eyes. I said a lot of things. That's when Jordan stepped in like he thought he was some kind of hero. Look, man, maybe you should just leave. I turned so fast he didn't see the punch coming. My fist landed square in his jaw, and he dropped like dead weight. That was the moment Savannah screamed for real. You psycho. You could have killed him. I should have, I said, voice shaking. But I won't, because then you'd just cry to the cops and pretend to be the victim again. She stood there, chest heaving, mascara running, and even then, she looked at me with pure disgust. I never loved you, she spat. You were convenient. A stepping stone. You're like a damn workhorse. Easy to ride. Does what he's told. Never asks questions. I didn't hit her. I just stared. Numb. And then I walked out. I didn't go home. I drove around all night until the sun started to rise. I watched it through the windshield like it was supposed to burn away whatever the hell I was feeling. But it didn't. I didn't sleep. Couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. With him. That towel slipping. That look of indifference. That laugh. The next few days were a blur. I filed for divorce. Changed my locks. Burned every photo of us I could find. Her lawyer called, asking for amicable discussions. I told him to go screw himself. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't even the cheating. It was realizing how long she'd been gone from me, mentally, emotionally, while I was still trying to fix us. Like a fool patching up a boat that already had holes blown through the hull. She started telling people I was abusive, that I controlled her. Me, the guy who once worked double shifts so she could find herself, with yoga retreats and art classes. She painted me as the monster while she played the victim. And people believed her. My friends stopped calling. Her parents, who I helped put into a better home, blocked me. She posted cryptic little quotes on Instagram about freeing yourself from toxic love while still grinding up on Jordan in some bar downtown. I kept quiet. I let her run her mouth. Until the courtroom. That day, everything changed. That scar on my back? Jordan gave it to me that night. After I walked out, he followed me to the parking lot with a broken bottle and jumped me from behind. The doctor said I was lucky. 1 inch deeper, and it would have hit my lung. I didn't press charges. I wanted her to think she won. Let her gloat. Until that moment in the trial. When she mocked me. You should have seen her face when I took my shirt off. The judge's expression. The crowd in the back gasping. The cameras from the news station that caught it all. Because yes, the trial had gone public. She wanted attention. She just didn't expect that kind. She stammered. For the first time in months, she looked afraid. I didn't have to say much after that. The bruises spoke louder than I ever could. But I wasn't done. Because if she thought public shame was the end of it, she had no idea what I had planned next. I could feel the tension in the air, the stares of the courtroom heavy on my shoulders. Savannah, for the first time, looked uncertain. The bravado, the cocky attitude she'd carried for months, seemed to evaporate, replaced by a flicker of fear. I had taken everything from her in that moment. Her attorney, a slick little guy who probably made his living off shady divorces, shot me a dirty look. But it didn't matter. I had the upper hand now. The judge wasn't even pretending anymore, his eyes darting between me and Savannah, clearly taken aback by the display. Savannah's mouth opened, but no words came out at first. She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. You're making a spectacle of yourself, she muttered, her voice wavering. I couldn't help but laugh, a dark, humorless sound that made her wince. A spectacle? That's rich, coming from you. You've been the one making a spectacle of me for months now. For years, actually. I let my eyes flick to her lawyer, who was now nervously shuffling his papers, but I didn't care about him. I was done playing by the rules. The whole damn court knew the truth now. Everyone could see who she really was. Savannah's face twisted with anger, her eyes narrowing. You're pathetic, she hissed. You've always been pathetic. You're just mad that I found someone who actually cares about me, who knows how to treat me like a woman, not just a workhorse. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. You've been lying to yourself, Savannah. You never cared about me. You don't even know what love is. You used me, and when I stopped being useful, you threw me out like a used car. The words hit harder than I expected. They had been building up for so long, just waiting to be released. And when they came out raw, unfiltered. I felt a strange satisfaction in that moment, a sense of closure I hadn't even known I needed. Her jaw tightened, her fists clenching at her sides. For a second, she almost looked like she might say something else, but then she bit her lip and stayed silent. Her pride had taken a hit, and that was enough. I stood there, letting the silence hang in the air. It was thick, heavy, but I didn't care. It was her turn to deal with the fallout now. Not me. The judge cleared his throat, breaking the tension. Let's move on, he said, his voice flat, clearly tired of the drama. But even he seemed a little shaken by the spectacle. As the trial continued, I could see Savannah squirming in her seat, glancing at her lawyer for reassurance. The lies she'd spun for so long were unraveling in front of everyone, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. I wasn't going to let her twist the narrative any longer. For the first time, I was in control. For the first time, I had the power to finally walk away. When the trial ended, I didn't even wait for her to speak. I didn't want her to. She had already said everything she needed to say, and I'd heard it all. I walked out of that courtroom with my head held high. I didn't feel victorious, but I felt free. The weight of the last few months, hell, the last few years, was finally lifting off my shoulders. I didn't know what came next. Maybe I would rebuild. Maybe I'd walk away from everything. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let Savannah have the final word. Not anymore. I had been the fool for far too long. It was time for me to take control of my life, to stop being the workhorse and start being the man I was always meant to be. I couldn't fix what was broken, but I could damn sure start over. After the trial, I didn't go home. I couldn't. That house, our house, reeked of her. Every room was a ghost town of fake smiles, whispered lies, and those late-night moans that I used to believe were for me. Instead, I drove. For hours. No destination, just movement. The kind of driving where the road becomes a blur and your thoughts start getting louder than the engine. I must have replayed everything 1,000 times. Her laughter when I walked in on them. The smug smirk in court. The way she said, "You're like a workhorse," like I was beneath her. I ended up parked outside a 24-hour diner somewhere outside the city. Rain had started. One of those soft, endless rains that don't make a scene. They just show up and stay. I sat in that truck, watching the droplets chase each other down the windshield, and for the first time in a long while, I let myself feel it. Everything. Rage. Shame. Grief. The bone-deep kind of heartbreak that doesn't just hurt, it hollows you out. And then I thought of Jordan. Not just what he did to me, but what he didn't do. He didn't run when I confronted him. He didn't even look afraid. You'd think a guy caught with another man's wife would at least flinch. But no, he smirked. Like he knew she was never mine to begin with. That was the moment I realized something. This wasn't just betrayal. It was calculated. She had been planning this. Hell, maybe she was waiting for me to find out. Maybe she wanted me to see it so she could finally be the victim she always painted herself as. I wasn't going to let that happen. The next day, I went to the bank. The joint account? Emptied the day after court. She had been faster than I thought. My name was already off the car title. Insurance switched. Utilities rerouted. She'd prepared her exit with military precision. What she hadn't prepared for was that I had backup plans too. I had photos, messages, call logs. I had proof she'd been seeing him for over a year, while telling me she was at women's retreats and spiritual cleanse weekends. She even lied about being pregnant once. I remember her crying in the bathroom, holding her stomach like it was some kind of sacred thing. Turns out, it was a decoy, just another trick to keep me loyal while she played house with someone else. And I had the receipts. I met with my lawyer, Daniel. Good guy, quiet, smart, and when he saw the evidence, he just whistled low and said, "She's gonna regret ever opening her mouth in court." Savannah thought the trial was over, but I had just started my own. I sent her a letter through my lawyer. Not an email, not a text, a cold, official envelope that said I'm not done with you yet. Inside were documents, lawsuits, evidence of her breach of prenup clauses, proof of defamation. She had spread rumors in our neighborhood, in her Instagram captions, even at her yoga studio. All lies. All punishable. Within a week, I got a call. Blocked number. I picked up and didn't speak. "Damon," she said, voice suddenly sweet again, like the venom had been rinsed out with desperation. "Can we talk? Please." I stayed silent. I didn't mean to hurt you like this. Things got messy, and I made mistakes. I was confused. Jordan, he wasn't even supposed to mean anything. Now that made me laugh. Confused, I finally said, "Savannah, you weren't confused. You were calculating. You cheated, lied, faked pregnancies, humiliated me in court, and now that you realize you can't bleed me dry, suddenly you're remorseful?" There was silence on the line. Then a whisper, "I just want to fix things." Fix things. This woman thought she could fix a car crash with duct tape. "You broke the last piece of me that believed in you," I said. "You should have left quietly. Now you're going to leave with nothing." She tried to cry. She always could cry on command. I used to fall for it. I used to run to hold her when she cried like that. Not this time. I hung up. That night, I slept for the first time in weeks. Really slept. No nightmares. No replaying the moment I found them. Just darkness. Peaceful, silent darkness. Because for the first time since this mess began, I was finally waking up. 2 days later, she showed up at my apartment. I heard the knock and knew it was her before I even opened the door. It was the kind of knock only someone entitled would use. Quick, sharp, like the world owed her attention. I didn't answer at first. Just stood behind the door, heart steady. I had no interest in seeing her face again, but part of me wanted to look into her eyes when I told her she didn't matter anymore. She knocked again, then a pause, then a soft, "Damon, please." I opened the door just enough to see her. She looked like hell. Smudged mascara, hair in a messy bun, hoodie too big for her shoulders. No makeup. That alone told me something was off. Savannah didn't leave the house without a full face unless the world was collapsing. "What do you want?" I asked flatly. Her lips parted, but she hesitated. For the first time, she looked unsure. Scared, even. "I need to talk. Please. Just 5 minutes." "You've had 5 years," I said. "And you spent the last one lying with your legs open." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "I deserve that," she whispered. "I know I do." She tried to push past me, but I didn't move. I stood there, filling the doorway, unmoved. She sighed. "I lost my job. Jordan left. My parents aren't talking to me. I have no money." And there it was. The truth. Not love. Not guilt. Not regret. Survival. She didn't come back because she missed me. She came back because her little fantasy crashed into a wall and she had nowhere else to go. "Do you think I care?" I said, voice like ice. "Do you think you can burn down my house, piss on the ashes, and then come crawling back when your matchbook ran out?" I made a mistake. "No," I cut in. "A mistake is forgetting to text back. A mistake is crashing a car. You made a choice. Every night you laid in bed with him. Every time you told me you loved me, then turned around and lied." Tears welled in her eyes. Crocodile tears. I'd seen them before. She always cried when the mask slipped. "Just let me in, Damon," she said, voice shaking. "I don't know where else to go." I let the silence stretch. Then I stepped back, just slightly, and nodded. Her eyes lit up, and then I pulled out a manila envelope from the hallway table and handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, blinking. "Eviction notice," I said. "For the condo I let you use after the trial. That's done. You've got a week. After that, your stuff's on the street." Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope. "You can't do this." "Oh, but I can. And I will." She stared at me like she didn't recognize me anymore. Like I'd become someone else. Maybe I had. She tried one last time, reaching out to touch my chest. "Please, Damon. You're not this cold." I looked down at her hand like it was something foreign, then looked her straight in the eyes. "You told the court I was just a workhorse," I said quietly. "Well, even workhorses know when to kick." I closed the door in her face. Did I feel good? No. I felt clean. Later that night, I sat on my balcony with a whiskey in hand, watching the skyline blink like slow-motion fireworks. It was the first time I could breathe. Really breathe. No tension in my jaw. No weight on my shoulders. The phone buzzed once, her name lighting up the screen. I stared at it until it stopped. Then I blocked her. Not just her number. Everything. Email, socials, mutual friends. I burned the bridge down to the foundation and pissed on the soil. Because here's the truth no one tells you. Heartbreak doesn't end with revenge or some dramatic courtroom moment. It ends with peace. And peace comes when you stop needing an apology that will never be honest and start building a life where you don't need them at all. A week passed. Quiet, steady, no drama. Just silence. The kind of silence that used to scare me. Now, it felt like armor. I'd wake up, make coffee without walking on eggshells. No fake good morning kisses. No side eyes while she scrolled through her phone at breakfast. Just me. And for the first time in years, that was enough. Until her mother called. I let it ring the first time. I didn't know that woman anything. She had sat in court while Savannah dragged my name through the mud and said nothing. Smirked, even. She was cut from the same fabric, same tone, same cold manipulation, just aged. But when she called again 5 minutes later, I answered out of curiosity more than respect. "Damon," her voice cracked. "I'm sorry to bother you, but something's wrong with Savannah." I didn't say a word. She's not well," her mother continued. "She's been drinking a lot, sleeping in her car. She lost everything. I told her she had to leave my house. She showed up drunk last night, screaming about how she made a mistake, how Jordan used her and dumped her. She's falling apart." I waited, because I knew what was coming next. She needs help. Maybe she needs you. There it was. The hook. The bait. "No," I said. "Damon, I'm not the cleanup crew anymore." Her mother went quiet. Then, bitterly, "She still loves you." I almost laughed. She loved what I gave her. She loved control. She loved being worshipped. That's not love. That's power. She's still my daughter. And she's still your problem. I hung up. I didn't feel good after that. I felt heavy, but I wasn't stupid enough to feel guilt. That wasn't my burden anymore. A few days later, I got a message from an old friend, Kyle. We hadn't talked much since Savannah started isolating me from the people who actually gave a damn about me. "Bro," he wrote, "I saw your ex at Mason's bar last night. She was a mess. Trying to start a fight with some girl. It was ugly." I read the text and stared at it for a long time. Not because I missed her, but because I couldn't believe how far she'd fallen in just a few weeks without my stability. That's what I had been to her. A crutch. A safety net. The guy who always had her back while she stabbed mine. I didn't reply. What was there to say? Let her drown in the mess she made. I wasn't throwing her another rope. Not after what she did to me. Not after what she said to me. But that's when the dreams started. Not nightmares. Not exactly. Just moments. Vivid. Too real. Her laugh when we first met. The way she used to wear my hoodie when she was cold. That look she gave me when I proposed. The one I thought was love. Waking up after those dreams felt like getting sucker punched by a ghost. But I didn't give in. Every time I felt that pull, nostalgia, regret, weakness, I'd open the photos. The ones I took the day I caught her with Jordan. Her on top of him, the condom wrapper on the nightstand, the wine stain on my pillow. That was my medicine. My reminder. And just when I thought she was finally done trying, she showed up again. Not at my door this time, but at my job. She waited outside the building, makeup smeared, hair a mess, standing in the cold like some broken version of the queen she used to pretend to be. "Damon," she said, stepping in front of me as I walked toward my car. "Please, just hear me out." I looked past her. "You're trespassing." Just 2 minutes. I exhaled. You got one. She wrung her hands. I'm sorry. I know I can't fix it. I know I don't deserve anything. But I can't stop thinking about us. About what I did. I didn't realize what I had until I destroyed it. Jordan's gone. Everyone's gone. I don't have anyone. That's because you used everyone, I said. You drained people dry, Savannah. And now you want sympathy. Her lip trembled. I miss you. No. You miss the version of me that let you get away with anything. Tears rolled down her face, but I didn't move. You told the world I was a workhorse. Guess what? I finally stopped carrying you. She tried to speak again, but I got in my car and shut the door. And this time, I didn't look back. The next day, I changed my number. No warning, no announcement. Just vanished from her radar entirely. I didn't post about it, didn't tell mutual friends. I just deleted her from the map of my life. It felt like closing the lid on a coffin. Final, quiet, necessary. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was healing. In that silence, I got my life back. Piece by piece. I started going back to the gym, not to punish myself like I used to when I was trying to be enough for her, but because I wanted to. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in years. Guys like Kyle, who never judged me, even when I ghosted him for the woman who'd eventually gut me. We went out for drinks one night, and he said, "Man, I thought you were lost forever. Glad to see you walking with both feet again." I laughed, and it felt real. Not forced. Not like something I did to cover pain, but like a man who finally stepped out of a tunnel and saw the damn sun again. I got promoted at work. My boss noticed I was sharper, more focused. He didn't ask why, and I didn't explain. But I knew it. When the emotional cancer gets cut out of your life, everything starts functioning better. Meanwhile, I heard whispers about Savannah. She got fired from another job. She tried living with a friend, got kicked out. Jordan apparently left town. Word was, he'd been cheating on her too, with a girl barely out of college. Her social media went dark. The filters couldn't fix what her life had become. I felt nothing. Not joy. Not sadness. Just indifference. And that's when I knew I had really won. Because anger still connects you to a person. But indifference? That's true freedom. One afternoon, months later, I was at a small backyard barbecue hosted by a coworker. Nothing fancy. Just grilled food, music, and people laughing like the world hadn't fallen apart. That's where I met Brielle. She wasn't like Savannah. Not loud. Not center stage. Not the kind of woman who played people like chess pieces. She was quiet confidence. A smart smile. She asked questions and actually listened. When I made a joke, her laughter didn't sound like a performance. It sounded like music. We talked for hours. No expectations. No pretending. When she asked if I had ever been married, I didn't lie. I told her the truth, but not the whole tragedy. Just enough to explain the scar without bleeding on her. She nodded and said, "You seem like a man who's survived something big." I looked at her, really looked at her, and said, "Yeah, I did." Later that night, I went home and stood in front of the mirror. The man looking back at me didn't have bloodshot eyes or clenched teeth. He wasn't dragging chains of betrayal or heartbreak. He stood straight, calm, stronger. And then I remembered that day in court. Her voice, mocking, cruel. "You're like a workhorse, easy to ride." But I wasn't a workhorse anymore. I was free. And I realized something I never thought I would. I was grateful. Not for her. Not for the lies. But for the burn that forced me to rebuild. For the pain that stripped everything fake away and left me with the only thing I actually needed. Myself. If you're reading this and you're in that dark place, if you're wondering how the hell you got there, and if it'll ever stop hurting, listen. It will. But only if you stop giving CPR to something that's already dead. Walk away. Let the fire burn down the past. Then step into the ashes and start building. Trust me, there's life after her. And it's beautiful. 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address, but the handwriting was familiar. Too familiar. It was from her. I almost tossed it straight into the trash. Almost. But something about the weight of it made me pause. I opened it slowly, unfolded the paper, and saw her words, scrawled in the same looping script she used to leave love notes on the fridge, back when everything was still fake and pretty. Asterisk, Damon. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I wouldn't blame you if you don't finish reading this. But I needed to say one last thing before I disappear from your life completely. I was awful to you. I lied. I cheated. I took everything you gave me and spat on it. There's no excuse. You were a better man than I ever deserved. And when I mocked you in court, when I said those things, I was trying to hurt you because seeing you strong terrified me. You gave me a life, Damon. A beautiful life. I didn't know how to value it. I won't bother you again. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. And I hope you found someone who sees you for what you really are, the kind of man people write stories about. Goodbye. Asterisk. I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I folded it and burned it, not out of anger, not even out of bitterness, but because that chapter was closed. Done. She was a lesson, not a sentence. Some people come into your life to love you. Others come to wreck everything so you can rebuild better. She was the wrecking ball. I was the architect. I stood outside, watching the ashes swirl in the breeze, and smiled. Inside, my phone buzzed. A message from Brielle. Hey you, still up for that road trip this weekend? I smiled wider. Yeah, I texted back. I'm ready. And I was. Ready for the next adventure. Ready for a life built on truth, not illusion. Love, not manipulation. Peace, not control. Because the truth is, being broken doesn't mean you're done. It means you're being remade. And sometimes, all it takes is walking away from the fire to realize you were the flame all along. The screech of tires echoed through the quiet neighborhood, and my heart sank as I peeked through the blinds. A sleek black sports car, way too flashy for anyone Emily claimed to know, pulled into our driveway. My wife stepped out, laughing, her hand lingering on the driver's shoulder. I froze. That wasn't just a friendly gesture. Who the hell is that? I whispered to myself, gripping the curtain tighter. Emily didn't see me watching. She stood there, her dress clinging to her figure like she just stepped out of some high-end photo shoot, saying something to the man in the car. His face was shadowed, but I could make out the sharp lines of his jaw and the confident smirk he gave her before speeding off. The front door opened, and she waltzed in like nothing had happened. "Oh, you're still up?" she said nonchalantly, kicking off her heels and glancing at the clock. "Still up? What kind of question was that?" "Who was that?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. She paused only for a second, before flashing me that picture-perfect smile. "Just Chloe's new boyfriend. He offered me a ride home." Don't be so dramatic, Adam. But I wasn't buying it. Not this time. The scent of his cologne still lingered in the air, mixing with hers in a way that made my stomach churn. I wanted to press her, to demand answers, but I knew better. Emily was a master manipulator, twisting words, playing the victim, making me feel like I was the crazy one. Instead, I nodded, letting her think she'd won. "Sure," I said, turning away. But as she disappeared into the bedroom, I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture of the sports car still parked at the curb. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I sat in the dark living room for hours that night, staring at the photo of the black sports car on my phone. My mind was a battlefield, torn between denial and rage. The woman I had shared my life with, the woman I trusted more than anyone else, had been lying to my face. But I needed proof, something solid, undeniable. The next morning, Emily was back to her usual charming self. She floated around the kitchen, humming a tune, pouring herself coffee like the events of the previous night were a distant dream. I studied her carefully, noting the subtle changes I had missed before. The extra time she spent getting ready, the way her phone never left her side anymore, the sudden influx of work meetings that kept her out late. "Busy day ahead?" I asked casually, sipping my coffee. She looked up, startled, like she wasn't expecting me to engage. "Oh yeah," she said, quickly recovering. "Client meetings, you know how it is." I nodded, pretending to accept her excuse. But as soon as she left for work, I sprang into action. I didn't even know where to begin, but something told me the answers were in her phone. Unfortunately, Emily was smart, too smart to leave it lying around without a passcode. Desperate times called for desperate measures. I remembered that she had synced her phone with our shared tablet a few months ago. If her messages were still linked, I might have access to everything. My hands trembled as I powered on the device and navigated to the messaging app. Bingo! A stream of messages popped up, most of them innocuous chats with friends and coworkers. But one thread stood out, a conversation with a contact saved as just D. My heart raced as I opened it. "D, last night was incredible. I can't stop thinking about you. Emily, me too. Can't wait for next time. Same place? D, absolutely. You're worth every risk. The air felt like it had been sucked out of the room. There it was in black and white, confirmation of my worst fears. My pulse thundered in my ears as I scrolled through their exchange, each message a dagger to my chest. They talked about fancy dinners, expensive gifts, stolen moments that she had never once mentioned to me. And then, the final blow. D, should I pick you up from the house again? Emily, no. Adam might notice. Let's stick to the usual spot. The usual spot. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? My jaw tightened as I realized how deeply I had been played. I felt a wave of anger surge through me, but I forced myself to calm down. This wasn't the time to explode. Emily was too good at turning situations around, making me question myself. I needed more. I decided to follow her. That evening, Emily claimed she had another client meeting and left the house dressed to kill. Her heels clicked against the pavement as she made her way to the corner, where the same black sports car was waiting. My stomach turned as I watched her slide into the passenger seat without hesitation, leaning in close to the driver. I had already rented a car earlier in the day, something inconspicuous that she wouldn't recognize. Keeping a safe distance, I tailed them as they sped through the city, finally pulling into the parking lot of a luxury hotel. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as they stepped out of the car, laughing like carefree teenagers. The man D, I presumed, was tall, impeccably dressed, oozing confidence. Emily clung to his arm like she had completely forgotten the vows we had exchanged. I stayed in the car, my thoughts racing. What was I supposed to do? Storm in there and confront them? Call her out in front of her lover? But something inside me held back. This wasn't the time. I needed a plan, a way to corner her, so there was no escape. For now, I took photos of them walking into the hotel together, of her hand resting on his chest as they entered the lobby. Cold, hard evidence that she couldn't deny. By the time I got home, it was past midnight. Emily hadn't returned yet, and I didn't expect her to. I sat on the couch, staring at the photos on my phone, replaying the events of the night in my head. Every smile she had given him, every touch, every laugh. It was like watching a stranger, not the woman I thought I knew. When she finally walked through the door at 3 a.m., she didn't even bother making an excuse. Work ran late, she muttered, avoiding my gaze as she headed straight for the bedroom. I didn't say a word, but in my silence, a storm was brewing. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of Emily in the shower. It was strange how normal everything seemed on the surface, as if the night before hadn't happened, as if she hadn't walked in at 3 a.m. with a flimsy excuse. But for me, everything had changed. The air in our house felt heavier, charged with the weight of betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her side of the closet. Her clothes hung there neatly, each one a reminder of the life we had built together. Or so I thought. Now, every outfit seemed like a costume, a disguise for the double life she was living. Emily emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, her hair damp and sticking to her shoulders. She didn't even glance at me as she rummaged through her dresser, humming that same irritating tune she always did. Late night at work again? I asked, my tone calm but loaded. She froze for half a second, then resumed her search for clothes. Yeah, she said, her voice clipped. Clients can be so demanding. I nodded, watching her every move. Funny, I said, standing up, because I don't think your clients typically drop you off in a black sports car or take you to luxury hotels. Her head snapped up, her eyes narrowing as she tried to gauge my expression. What are you talking about? I took a deep breath, holding up my phone. The photos I had taken the night before were displayed on the screen. The car, the hotel, her laughing with D. Her face paled for a moment before she quickly recovered, her expression hardening into one of defiance. Were you spying on me? She hissed, her voice rising. Spying? I shot back, my voice laced with disbelief. Are you seriously going to turn this around on me? You're the one sneaking around with some guy while I sit at home like an idiot. Her lips curled into a sneer. You're insane, Adam. That's a business meeting. Do you know how ridiculous you sound right now? Business meeting? I laughed bitterly. At a hotel? At midnight? With someone who calls you worth the risk? Don't insult my intelligence, Emily. She crossed her arms, her eyes blazing. You know what your problem is? You're paranoid. You've always been paranoid. Maybe if you spent less time overthinking and more time paying attention to me, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I felt like I had been slapped. Her words cut deep, not because they were true, but because of how easily she twisted the blame onto me. For a moment, I almost doubted myself. Almost. Don't do that, I said, my voice low but firm. Don't make this about me. I have the proof, Emily. I have the messages. I know everything. Her eyes darted to her phone on the nightstand, and I could see the panic creeping in. For the first time, her composure cracked. You went through my phone? She snapped, her voice shrill. That's a complete invasion of privacy. Privacy? I shouted, my anger finally boiling over. You're cheating on me, and you're worried about privacy? Do you even hear yourself? The room fell silent, the only sound the ticking of the clock on the wall. Emily stood there, her chest heaving, her hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought she might break down, might finally admit to what she had done. But then she did what she always did, she lied. Fine, she said, her voice cold and calculated. You want to know the truth? Yes, I've been spending time with D. But it's not what you think. He's a business associate, someone who's helping me with a project. That's all. I stared at her, my mind racing. How could she lie so effortlessly, so convincingly? I almost wanted to believe her, to hold on to the illusion that our marriage wasn't completely shattered. But I couldn't. I followed you, Emily, I said quietly. I saw you with him. I saw the way you looked at him. That's not business. That's something else entirely. She rolled her eyes, her expression turning contemptuous. You're pathetic, Adam. Do you know that? Sitting here, playing detective, trying to catch me in some imaginary affair. Maybe if you had half the ambition he does, I wouldn't need to look elsewhere for excitement. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. She wasn't just denying the affair. She was mocking me, tearing me down piece by piece. You really don't care, do you? I said, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. You don't care about me, about us, about this marriage. She shrugged, a cruel smile playing on her lips. Maybe I don't. Maybe I got tired of being married to someone so ordinary. That was it, the final nail in the coffin. I turned and walked out of the bedroom, her laughter echoing behind me. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was reveling in her betrayal, in the power she thought she held over me. But this wasn't over. Not yet. As I stood in the hallway, staring at the photos on the wall, our wedding day, vacations, moments that now felt like a cruel joke, I made a decision. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. If she wanted to play games, I would make sure she regretted it. This time, I would be the one holding all the cards. The days after our confrontation passed like a blur. Emily acted as though nothing had happened, continuing her charade with the same arrogance she had displayed in our bedroom. She came and went on her usual schedule, always with that same confident stride, the same dismissive tone. It was as if my pain was beneath her notice, a nuisance she didn't even bother to acknowledge. But I wasn't idle. If she thought she could continue living this double life without consequences, she was sorely mistaken. My anger, once a fiery storm, had turned into something colder, sharper. I wasn't going to yell or plead anymore. I was done being the fool. First, I started with the man she thought was worth the risk. I had no name, only an initial, D, and a black sports car. But that was enough. I uploaded the photo of the car to a local community group, pretended to be someone curious about a luxury vehicle they'd seen in the area. Within hours, the replies flooded in. Looks like David Blake's car, one user commented. David Blake. The name clicked almost immediately. He was a wealthy real estate mogul with a reputation that preceded him. He was the kind of man who thought the world owed him everything, who took what he wanted without a second thought. I had seen his face in magazines, his name in headlines. He wasn't just some random fling. He was someone powerful, untouchable. Except he wasn't untouchable to me. While Emily went about her day, pretending her web of lies wasn't unraveling, I did my homework. I scoured every bit of information I could find on David Blake, his business ventures, his connections, his habits. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was strategic. By the time Emily left for another meeting, I was ready. She had become predictable in her routine, her lies almost laughably transparent. She claimed she was heading to a work dinner, but I knew exactly where she was going. I followed her car, keeping a safe distance as she made her way across town. As expected, she met David at an upscale restaurant, her hands slipping into his as they walked inside. I stayed in the shadows, watching from the parking lot. My stomach churned at the sight of them together, but I forced myself to stay calm. This wasn't the time for an emotional outburst. This was about gathering evidence, about taking back the power she thought she had over me. An hour later, they emerged, laughing and leaning into each other like two teenagers sneaking around behind their parents' backs. My jaw clenched as I snapped photos of them, their betrayal now immortalized in my camera roll. But they weren't done. David opened the door to his car for her, and as she slid inside, they shared a kiss, long, lingering, and utterly shameless. My hands trembled as I captured the moment, my anger threatening to boil over. I followed them to their next destination, a private villa on the outskirts of town. It was the kind of place people rented to keep their secrets hidden, tucked away from prying eyes. They disappeared inside, the door closing behind them like a final slap in the face. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Part of me wanted to storm in there, to confront them both, to unleash all the rage I had been holding back. But I knew that wouldn't accomplish anything. Emily had already shown me who she was, and David Blake was just another extension of her selfishness. Instead, I waited. 2 hours later, Emily emerged, her hair slightly disheveled, her expression smug and satisfied. David followed her to the car, planting another kiss on her cheek before she drove away. I stayed behind, watching him disappear back inside the villa, completely unaware that his private little affair wasn't so private anymore. When I returned home, Emily was already there, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine in hand. She looked up as I entered, her face betraying none of the guilt she should have felt. "Long day?" she asked, her tone casual, almost mocking. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked past her, heading straight to the office where I kept my laptop. It was time to put everything together, the photos, the messages, the timeline of her lies. I wasn't going to confront her again until I had all the evidence laid out in black and white, until there was no way she could weasel her way out of it. But I wasn't just preparing for another argument. This wasn't about saving our marriage anymore. That ship had sailed the moment she chose to betray me. No, this was about ensuring that Emily understood the full weight of her actions, about making her see that she wasn't as untouchable as she thought. Over the next few days, I continued to gather evidence, piecing together every bit of her betrayal. Emily, oblivious as ever, carried on with her double life, completely unaware that her carefully constructed house of cards was about to come crashing down. And when it did, I was going to make sure she felt every single piece of it. By now, the weight of betrayal no longer felt like a boulder crushing me. It had transformed into a sharp, focused blade. My anger wasn't wild or uncontrolled anymore. It was precise. Every step I took, every bit of evidence I gathered, pushed me closer to the moment when I would finally confront Emily in a way she couldn't escape. She was late coming home again, her usual pattern. When she finally walked through the door, I was in the kitchen, pretending to scroll through my phone. She glanced at me, her expression unreadable, then made a beeline for the bathroom. A quick exit, as always. Her guilt was so obvious now that it was almost laughable. The house was silent except for the faint sound of running water. My phone buzzed, pulling my attention away. It wasn't a text or call, but a notification from the app I downloaded to track her location. She had no idea that I'd activated it on the tablet linked to her phone. Every place she went, I knew. Every lie she told about where she was, I had the truth sitting in my pocket. And that evening, her little excursion to David Blake's villa had given me one more piece of the puzzle. I needed an ally, someone who could help me figure out the next steps because, let's be honest, confronting her without a plan would be disastrous. That's when I called my friend Chris. Chris had been my best man at our wedding, the one person I could count on to keep my secrets and give me brutally honest advice. When I told him what I'd uncovered, he didn't even try to hide his disbelief. "Emily," he said, his voice sharp through the phone. "You're kidding me, right? She's been cheating on you with that guy?" The one all over the news? What the hell, Adam? I'm not kidding, I replied, my voice low but firm. I've got photos, messages, everything. There was a pause, and then Chris let out a long sigh. You got to get ahead of this, man. Don't let her spin the narrative. You need to talk to a lawyer, figure out your options. And for God's sake, don't let her manipulate you into thinking this is your fault. He was right. Emily was a master manipulator, and I knew she'd try to twist this in her favor if I gave her the chance. I thanked Chris and ended the call, my mind racing. A lawyer. That was the logical next step, but there was a part of me that wanted more. I didn't just want to end this. I wanted her to feel the sting of her betrayal, to see what it was like to be on the other side of the lies and deceit. The next morning, I scheduled an appointment with a divorce attorney. The woman I met was sharp, professional, and clearly unimpressed by the drama I was walking into her office with. I laid out the facts, showed her the evidence, and waited for her response. This is a solid case, she said finally, flipping through the photos I had printed. If you file, there's no way she can contest this. But I need to ask, what do you want out of this? Do you want to fight for alimony, the house, anything specific? Or do you just want out? I hesitated, the question hanging in the air. What did I want? Did I care about the money, the assets? Or did I just want to be free of her and everything she had done to me? Just the house, I said after a moment. She doesn't get to walk away from this and take everything we built together. That's all I care about. The lawyer nodded, scribbling down notes. We'll make it happen, but you need to be prepared. This could get ugly. Women like your wife don't go down without a fight. I wasn't afraid of a fight. Not anymore. That evening, Emily walked into a trap she didn't even see coming. I had laid everything out on the dining room table. Photos, screenshots of her messages with David, even a timeline of her lies. When she walked through the door, I was sitting there, waiting. What's this? She asked, her eyes narrowing as she took in the display. It's everything, I said, my voice calm. Everything you've been hiding. Everything you've been lying about. Her face went through a series of emotions. Shock, anger, fear. But she quickly settled on defiance. You've been spying on me? She demanded, crossing her arms. That's insane, Adam. You're acting like a complete lunatic. Don't even try it, I said, cutting her off. I know about David. I know about the villa, the hotel, all of it. You can stand there and lie to me again, but it's not going to work this time. For the first time, she faltered. Her mouth opened, then closed, as if she couldn't decide which lie to spin next. What do you want me to say? She finally snapped. That I'm sorry? That I regret it? Fine. I'm sorry, Adam. But maybe if you'd paid more attention to me, I wouldn't have had to find someone else. Her words were like poison, seeping into the cracks of my already broken heart. But I refused to let her see how much they hurt. This isn't on me, I said, my voice steady. This is on you. You made the choice to betray me, to lie to me, to destroy everything we had. And now, you're going to face the consequences. She rolled her eyes, her expression cold and unfeeling. Oh, please. What are you going to do, Adam? Cry about it? Run to a lawyer? Go ahead. I'll come out of this just fine. Her arrogance was staggering. She truly believed she was untouchable. But what she didn't know was that I had already taken the first step toward dismantling her illusion of control. Watch me, I said, standing up and walking away, leaving her standing there amidst the evidence of her betrayal. The battle had just begun. The next few days were a game of chess, and I was determined to win. Emily carried on as if nothing had changed, completely unaware of the storm brewing around her. She still walked around the house with that smug look on her face, as if she held all the cards. But every time she left the house, claiming another meeting or client dinner, I felt the walls closing in on her little web of lies. I'd already set the next phase of my plan into motion. My lawyer was preparing the paperwork, and I had sent copies of the damning photos and text messages to a secure email address, just in case Emily tried to erase any trace of her infidelity. I wasn't going to let her twist the narrative. Not this time. One evening, as I sat in the living room going over the details with my lawyer on the phone, Emily strolled in, glancing at me with a raised eyebrow. Talking to Chris again, she asked mockingly. She loved taking jabs at my friendship with Chris, as if it somehow made me less of a man to confide in a friend. I didn't respond. Instead, I ended the call and stood up, looking her dead in the eye. "We need to talk," I said, my voice calm but firm. She sighed dramatically, as if I were inconveniencing her by daring to address the situation. "What now, Adam? Are we really doing this again?" "We're doing this until you stop lying," I said. "But this time, it's not a conversation. I'm telling you what's going to happen." Her expression shifted, a flicker of nervousness breaking through her usual bravado. "What are you talking about?" "I'm filing for divorce," I said, watching her reaction closely. "And before you start throwing your usual excuses at me, let me make one thing clear. I'm not just walking away. I'm taking the house, and I'm making sure everyone knows exactly why this is happening." She blinked, momentarily caught off guard, before her features hardened. "You're bluffing," she said, her voice dripping with arrogance. "You don't have the guts to follow through, Adam. You never do." I stepped closer, holding her gaze. "I have the photos, Emily. The texts. The timeline. Everything. And if you think I won't use them, try me." Her lips curled into a bitter smile, but I could see the cracks forming in her confidence. "You think you're so righteous, don't you? Like you've never made a mistake. Maybe if you weren't so boring, I wouldn't have had to find someone else." Her words hit me like a slap, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I let them wash over me, fueling the resolve I had built over the past weeks. "You can try to blame me all you want," I said. "But at the end of the day, this is on you. You're the one who lied. You're the one who betrayed me. And now, you're going to face the consequences." Emily laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "You're pathetic, Adam. Do you know that? Acting all high and mighty, like you're the victim here. Maybe if you weren't so weak, I would have respected you more." Her words stung, but I knew better than to let her provoke me. This was her game, manipulation, deflection, turning everything back on me. But I wasn't playing anymore. "You're right," I said, surprising her. "I was weak. I let you walk all over me, let you lie to my face, let you make me feel like I was the problem. But not anymore. This is over, Emily. You don't get to have it both ways." For the first time, I saw fear flash in her eyes. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "Save it," I said, turning and walking away. "You've said enough." As I headed toward the door, I heard her call after me, her voice tinged with desperation. "You're really leaving?" she asked, her tone softer than before. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "Not yet," I said, without turning around. "But when I do, you'll know exactly why." I left the house, my heart pounding as I got into my car. I didn't have a destination in mind. I just needed to get away, to clear my head. As I drove through the city, the weight of everything hit me like a tidal wave. The betrayal, the lies, the realization that the woman I had loved was nothing more than a stranger to me now. I pulled into a parking lot and sat there for what felt like hours, staring at the dashboard. My phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was Chris. "How's it going?" he asked, his voice cautious. "It's done," I said, my voice heavy. "I told her I'm filing for divorce." Chris let out a low whistle. "Good for you, man. Seriously. She doesn't deserve you." I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. "Thanks, Chris, for everything." "Anytime," he said. "And listen, if you need anything, anything at all, you know where to find me." After hanging up, I leaned back in the seat, staring out at the city lights. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of clarity. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I was doing the right thing. I wasn't just walking away from Emily. I was walking toward a life where I didn't have to constantly question my worth, where I didn't have to live in the shadow of her lies. And as the nights stretched on, I made a promise to myself. I would come out of this stronger, no matter what it took. The morning after I dropped the bombshell, the house was eerily quiet. Emily wasn't in her usual spots. No coffee mug sitting on the counter, no sound of her heels clicking on the floor. For a moment, I wondered if she had packed her things and left in the middle of the night. But when I walked into the kitchen, there she was, sitting at the table with her arms crossed and a sour expression on her face. "You think you're clever, don't you?" she said, not even looking up at me. I sighed. already tired of the confrontation I knew was coming. What are you talking about, Emily? You think you've got it all figured out. Your little photos, your smug attitude. Do you think that's going to hurt me? Do you think you're going to come out of this looking like some hero? Her words were sharp, but her voice wavered just enough for me to notice. She wasn't as confident as she was pretending to be. This isn't about being a hero, I said calmly. It's about holding you accountable for what you've done. Emily scoffed, rolling her eyes. Oh, please. You're not as innocent as you think, Adam. I'm not the only one who's been unhappy in this marriage. Unhappy. That word stuck in my mind like a splinter. Maybe we hadn't been perfect. What marriage was, but I had stayed loyal. I had tried. And for her to reduce it to this, to dismiss her betrayal as some inevitable outcome, made my blood boil. What's your point, Emily? I asked, crossing my arms. Her eyes finally met mine, a dangerous glint in them. My point is, you're not walking away from this without consequences. You think you can just throw me out, take the house, and act like you're some kind of victim? Not a chance. I stared at her, trying to wrap my head around the audacity of her words. Even now, even after everything, she was still trying to manipulate the situation to her advantage. Consequences? I repeated, my voice low and steady. The only person who's going to face consequences here is you. I've got the proof, Emily. You can try to spin this however you want, but the truth is on my side. She laughed bitterly, shaking her head. You think anyone's going to care? People cheat all the time, Adam. It's not some grand betrayal. It's just life. And besides, who's going to believe you? You've always been the boring one, the one who couldn't keep up. Maybe that's why this happened in the first place. Her words were like daggers. Each one aimed to cut deeper than the last. But instead of breaking me, they only fueled my resolve. You know what? I said, stepping closer. You can keep making excuses, keep blaming me, keep pretending this is normal. But deep down, you know what you did, and you're going to have to live with that. She stood up, glaring at me. I don't have to live with anything, Adam. I've moved on. Maybe it's time you did the same. That was it. The final admission, delivered with a cruel smile that made my stomach turn. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't ashamed. She was proud of what she had done, proud of how she had walked all over me. And in that moment, I knew there was no going back. I left the house, slamming the door behind me. I couldn't be in the same space as her any longer. As I drove aimlessly through the city, my phone buzzed. It was my lawyer. Adam, she said when I picked up, we've got everything ready to file. All we need is your signature. Do it, I said without hesitation. I'm ready. After hanging up, I found myself parked outside a coffee shop. I didn't even remember driving there, but I got out of the car anyway, needing something, anything, to distract me from the chaos of my life. As I sipped my coffee, I scrolled through my phone, looking at the photos I had taken of Emily and David. They weren't just evidence anymore. They were reminders of the person she had become. And then an idea struck me. I opened a new email and attached the photos, along with a short, factual explanation of what had happened. No emotion, no embellishments, just the truth. I sent it to a few select contacts, David's business partners, a journalist who had recently written a glowing piece about him, and even his wife, whose contact information I had found during my research. It wasn't about revenge. It was about exposing the truth. People like David and Emily thrived on deception, on the belief that they were untouchable. But they weren't. By the time I got home, Emily was waiting for me. She was pacing the living room, her phone clutched tightly in her hand. Her expression was a mix of anger and panic, and I knew exactly why. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice trembling. I shrugged, setting my keys on the counter. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play dumb with me," she shouted. "I've been getting calls all evening. David, his wife, his business partners. You had no right to interfere in his life." I raised an eyebrow, feigning innocence. "You mean the life you were so eager to be a part of? The one you risked everything for? Funny how that works." Her face turned red with anger, and for a moment, I thought she might lunge at me. But instead, she threw her phone onto the couch and stormed toward the bedroom, slamming the door behind her. I leaned against the counter, taking a deep breath. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I was in control. Emily could rage and scream all she wanted, but the truth was out now. The lies she had built her life on were crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. As I sat down on the couch, I realized something important. I wasn't the same man I had been at the beginning of all this. I wasn't the naive, trusting husband who let himself be walked over. I had faced the truth, no matter how painful it was, and I had come out stronger on the other side. This wasn't just the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of something new, something better. The morning after I sent out the emails, the fallout began. Emily was unusually quiet at breakfast, her eyes darting between her phone and me as if she was waiting for the other shoe to drop. Meanwhile, I sat there calmly, sipping my coffee, knowing the storm had already begun. The first real crack came around noon. I was in my office, going through some documents for work, when I heard Emily's phone ringing incessantly in the other room. Her voice, muffled but sharp, echoed through the walls. I couldn't make out all the words, but it was clear she was on the defensive. By the time she stormed into the room, her face was a mixture of rage and desperation. "What did you do, Adam?" she demanded, slamming the door behind her. I looked up from my desk, feigning confusion. "Do about what?" "Don't play dumb with me," she snapped. "David's wife knows. His business partners know. He's furious, Adam. Do you have any idea what you've done?" I leaned back in my chair, taking my time to respond. "I told the truth," I said finally. "Something you seem to have a hard time with." Her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "You've ruined everything," she hissed. "Do you think this makes you look good? Do you think this is going to fix anything? All you've done is drag everyone down with you." "Everyone," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. "You mean you and David? Because as far as I'm concerned, you both deserve whatever comes your way." She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't give her the chance. "This is what happens when you lie, Emily. When you cheat, when you think you're untouchable. You wanted excitement? Congratulations, you got it." Her face twisted into something almost unrecognizable. For the first time, I saw the fear beneath her anger. She wasn't in control anymore, and she knew it. "You don't get to play the victim here," she said, her voice trembling. "You're not innocent in this, Adam. You've been distant, cold, boring. Maybe if you'd been more of a man." "Stop," I said sharply, cutting her off. "Don't you dare try to put this on me. I gave you everything, Emily. My trust, my loyalty, my love. And you threw it all away. So don't stand there and tell me this is my fault." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing as if searching for the right words to twist the knife. But she had nothing. The lies, the manipulation, it all fell flat. For the first time, I saw her for what she truly was, a coward. The rest of the day passed in tense silence. Emily retreated to the bedroom, her phone glued to her hand as she tried to contain the damage. I stayed in the office, my mind racing with what came next. The divorce papers were ready to be filed, and I knew it was only a matter of time before the life we had built together was dismantled completely. That evening, as I sat in the living room, Chris called. "How's it going?" he asked, his tone cautious. "About as well as you'd expect," I replied, glancing toward the bedroom door. "She's furious. David's wife knows, his business partners know. It's a mess." Chris let out a low whistle. "Good. They both deserve it. And what about you? How are you holding up?" I hesitated, considering the question. "Better," I said finally. "It's hard, but I think I'm finally starting to let go. She's not the person I thought she was, Chris. She never was." "You're doing the right thing," he said firmly. "Just keep moving forward. Don't let her drag you back into her chaos." "I won't," I promised. After hanging up, I sat there for a long time, staring at the photos on the wall. Our wedding day, vacations, birthdays, all moments that once felt so real, so meaningful. Now, they were just hollow reminders of a life that had been built on lies. By the next morning, Emily's facade had completely cracked. She sat across from me at the breakfast table, her makeup smudged and her hair disheveled. For once, she didn't look like the polished, untouchable woman she pretended to be. She looked human, vulnerable. "What do you want, Adam?" she asked quietly, her voice devoid of its usual venom. I set down my coffee cup, meeting her gaze. "I want my life back," I said simply. "I want to move on." And I want you to take responsibility for what you've done. She looked away, her hands trembling as she clutched her coffee mug. I never meant for it to get this far, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. That doesn't matter, I replied. What matters is what you do now. For a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of remorse in her eyes. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by the same cold defiance I had come to expect. You'll get your divorce, she said finally, standing up. But don't think for a second that I'm going to let you walk away unscathed. I watched her leave the room, her words hanging in the air like a threat. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. Over the next few weeks, the divorce proceedings moved quickly. Emily fought tooth and nail for the house, the car, anything she could use to maintain her image. But the evidence was stacked against her, and in the end, the judge sided with me. As I stood outside the courthouse on the final day, the weight I had been carrying for months finally lifted. Emily walked past me, without a word, her head held high despite the defeat. But I didn't care. She was out of my life now, and that was all that mattered. The weeks that followed were quiet, almost peaceful. I packed up the remnants of our life together, boxing away the memories that no longer held meaning. And for the first time in years, I felt free. This wasn't the ending I had envisioned when we first said our vows, but it was the one I needed. And as I looked toward the future, I knew one thing for certain. I would never let someone like Emily hold power over me again. I closed a $20 million deal and gave the money back to my wife for safekeeping overnight. But the next day, I was shocked to find my wife had vanished and her phones were switched off. She left a note saying, "Thanks for the money. I'm starting over with my boyfriend. And good luck starting from scratch." I couldn't help but laugh, because the bag she stole was actually filled with shredded newspaper and dummy stacks I used for negotiation training. But it wasn't funny. Not really. Because even if the money was fake, everything else was real: my marriage, my trust, the damn look in her eyes when she said, "I'll always have your back, baby." Her name was Madison. Blonde, blue-eyed, 5 feet 8 inches, with a smile that could trick God himself. When we met, I thought she was sent from heaven. Turns out, hell just has really good marketing. The night before she vanished, she was in silk. Blood red silk. Poured a glass of wine, kissed my cheek, and told me I was her king. Said I was too good for this world. I just closed a $20 million acquisition deal with a European firm and walked into our Beverly Hills home like I'd won the goddamn Super Bowl. And maybe I had. "I'm proud of you," she whispered, resting her head on my chest. I should have known. Madison never whispered unless she was hiding something. But I was high off success and blind as a bat in daylight. We sat in our rooftop lounge, LA lights painting the sky, and she asked me where the money was. "In the gym locker bag," I said casually. "I'll take it to the firm's vault tomorrow." She raised a brow. "You want me to watch it tonight?" "Sure." I chuckled. "Safer than leaving it alone." She smiled. Too quickly. "Of course, baby." And that was it. The last moment I saw my wife. The next morning, sunlight hit me through the curtains like a slap. I reached out to her side of the bed. Cold. Sheets folded neatly. No perfume. No sound of her heels. I walked downstairs expecting to see her in the kitchen, maybe making her black coffee and watching trashy reality TV. But all I found was silence. And a note. A single piece of our expensive stationery. Gold-trimmed. Perfumed. "Thanks for the money. I'm starting over with my boyfriend. And good luck starting from scratch." No signature. No explanation. Just betrayal. Folded in 120-gram luxury paper. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I sat down on the marble counter, staring at the note, and laughed. At first, it was a dry chuckle, then a full belly laugh. Because that was Madison, dramatic as a soap opera, but dumb as bricks. She stole the wrong bag. The real money had been transferred hours earlier through encrypted wire. The bag she took was a decoy, filled with shredded newspaper, fake hundreds, and a weight block to simulate cash weight. But that didn't ease the sting. Because it wasn't just about money. She left me. For someone else. That part was real. And it hit harder than anything. I checked my phone. 30 missed calls from an unknown number. I didn't call back. I called her instead. Straight to voicemail. Again. Again. Then I texted. "Are you serious?" Delivered. Read. No reply. That's when I knew. This wasn't some prank or breakdown. This was her escape plan. And she'd been planning it for months. In less than 12 hours, my wife had turned from partner to parasite, and I was standing barefoot on cold tile, watching my life shatter around me in slow motion. I walked to the safe room. Everything untouched. Security's intact. But my pride? Gone. And just when I thought the humiliation was done, my phone buzzed. Unknown number again. This time, I picked up. A man's voice. Smooth. Arrogant. Hey there, champ. She told me you might call. Silence. Then he laughed. She said you'd probably cry. I didn't say a word. My fingers clenched around the phone, so tight my knuckles popped. She also said you were too soft to notice all the times she came back home smelling like me. Click. The line went dead. I dropped the phone. My breath came in shallow bursts. My heart beat like a war drum. She hadn't just left me. She'd mocked me. She'd used my success, my trust, and turned it into some sick joke with her new lover. That's when the shame turned into something else. Something darker. I didn't care about the fake money. I didn't care about the note. I wanted answers. And Madison wasn't going to get away this easy. Not after everything. Not after us. I stood there, numb, staring at the reflection of myself in the oven's glass. The man in that reflection didn't look like me. His jaw was clenched so hard, a vein bulged at his temple. His eyes didn't look hurt. They looked murderous. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even shaking. I was just boiling. Silent rage. I opened our shared iCloud, something Madison probably thought I'd forgotten. She had no clue I'd set it up for both of us years ago. And boom, there it was. A location ping from earlier that morning. Somewhere near Long Beach. A cheap motel. Classy, Madison. Real classy. I got in my car without changing clothes. No shower. No coffee. Just sweatpants, bare feet and slides, and fury pumping in my chest like nitro. Every red light was a personal insult. Every driver ahead of me felt like an accomplice. I pulled into the motel lot and sat there for a second, heart thudding in my ears. The building looked like it belonged in a crime documentary. Peeling paint. Rusty railings. And behind curtain number 8, I'd find my wife. I didn't knock. I kicked. Door flew open and hit the wall. Madison screamed. She was in a towel. What hair? Lipstick smudged. A man behind her shirtless, tatted, smug as hell. Looked like a dollar store version of Machine Gun Kelly. You lost, bro? He asked. Madison scrambled to cover herself. Jason, what the hell are you doing here? I stepped into the room. Calmly. Like I was checking into a spa. What am I doing here? Funny question, Maddie. I was going to ask you the same. Okay, listen, she said, trying to pull on some shorts. I was going to tell you. No, you already told me, I interrupted, pulling out the note. This sweet little love letter says it all. She looked at it like it was a dead rat. Jason, you need to calm the hell down. Oh, I'm calm. Calm enough to explain something you clearly didn't know. I pulled the duffel bag from the hallway. Dropped it. Zipper open. She gasped. Looked inside. Newspapers. Dummy bills. She blinked. Then again. Then turned to me, jaw slowly falling. Wait, what the hell is this? I smiled. Not kindly. You ran off with a prop bag, Madison. You betrayed me for this. I tapped the stack of fake hundreds. The boyfriend laughed. Yo, is this guy serious? I turned to him. You think this is funny, huh? He smirked. A little bit. Yeah. I lunged. I don't remember much of what happened next. I just know he ended up on the floor, lip bleeding, Madison screaming, me standing over him shaking with adrenaline. I didn't throw more than 2 punches, but it felt like I could have crushed his skull right there. Jason, stop. Madison shouted, pushing between us. You left me, stole from me, and mocked me, I said, voice low, fist trembling. And you want me to stop? She folded her arms, eyes defiant. You lied to me first. You said you trusted me. If you really did, why give me a fake bag? I couldn't believe it. She had the nerve to blame me. I gave you a test, I said through gritted teeth. And you failed it like the piece of trash you are. She flinched at that. You think I didn't know? You think I didn't notice the nights you came home tired from Pilates? Or when you fell asleep at your sister's place? I smelled them on you, Madison. I just waited to see how far you'd go. She was quiet for a moment. Then she laughed. You're pathetic, she spat. You're just mad I beat you to it. I stared at her. And something inside me broke. Not shattered. Not exploded. It just snapped. I picked up the bag, zipped it closed. Keep the room, I said. I'll send you the dry cleaning bill for the blood. Then I walked out. The air outside was cooler than I expected. But my chest was burning. I got in my car, locked the door, and stared at the steering wheel. My hands were still shaking, but not from fear or rage. I was done. That was the moment I knew Madison was no longer my wife. She wasn't even a person to me anymore. She was a lesson, and I'd learned it. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. The idea of walking into our place, my place now, and smelling her perfume on the pillows, seeing her hairbrush on the counter, or that stupid mug that said Boss Babe in gold foil, it made my skin crawl. So, I drove. Nowhere specific. Just drove through LA like a ghost. Past the places we used to go, the wine bar in Silver Lake where we had our third date, the beach house in Malibu I stupidly put under both our names, even that dog park we never used because, well, we didn't have a damn dog. She just liked the idea of being seen as the kind of couple who might. It was almost midnight by the time I pulled into a parking garage downtown and just sat there, engine running. My phone buzzed. Unknown number again. I stared at it, eyes burning. I didn't answer. I already knew who it was. A minute later, a voicemail popped up. I hit play. It was Madison's voice, slurred. Hey, Jason, I didn't mean for it to be like this. I mean, yeah, I left, okay? But you don't understand. You were never there. You were always in meetings, always chasing deals. I needed someone who looked at me like I mattered, not like I was another investment in your portfolio. She paused, then quieter, but I didn't expect the bag to be fake. That was low. Then a male voice in the background. You done? Her tone shifted. Colder. Whatever. Don't call me. Click. I threw my phone into the passenger seat. So that was her story. I was too busy. I made her feel like a business strategy. Never mind the vacations, the gifts, the way I spent 2 months planning her birthday last year like it was a Hollywood gala. Never mind that I once skipped an investor summit in Singapore to stay home when her aunt died. None of that counted because I wasn't there to rub her feet every time she got emotional. She wanted worship. I gave her loyalty. Apparently, that's not the same thing anymore. I leaned back, eyes on the ceiling of the car, and asked myself a question I wasn't ready for. What now? Divorce was obvious. I'd get the papers drawn up. But it wasn't just about dissolving a marriage. It was deeper. I had to erase her from my system. Like a virus. She wasn't Madison anymore. She was just a mistake with a pretty face. When I finally got home, I didn't go to the bedroom. I went to the bar, poured whiskey, sat in the living room in the dark. No music, no lights, just the soft hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the occasional pop of the wood floor settling. Then I noticed something on the coffee table. A ring. Her wedding ring. She'd left it like some kind of insult. Like she was done. Like she was walking away clean. I picked it up and stared at the little diamond. We spent $6,000 on that ring, and now it felt like it belonged in a pawn shop or a trash can. I thought about flushing it. Then I thought about melting it. Then I just pocketed it. For now. The next few days were a blur. Calls from the law firm. My assistant, Chloe, asking if I was okay. I told her I had the flu. Told everyone that. Truth was, I couldn't stop replaying that voicemail. Not because it hurt, but because it showed me something. She never loved me. Not really. She loved the image. The perks. The status. And when she found a smoother ride, she jumped. And still, there was this ache in my chest. Not for her, but for the lie I lived in. The memories we made were poison now. Our wedding? A staged fairy tale. That night in New York under the stars? Scripted. Every, I love you? Bullshit. Rehearsed lines from a woman who was already looking for her next scene partner. I started sleeping in the guest room. Just until the paperwork was done. I boxed up her things. Every dress, every photo, every damn bottle of her overpriced skincare. All in storage. But then, something strange happened. I got another call. Private number. And this time, the voice wasn't Madison's. It was a woman. Calm. Clear. Serious. Mr. Green, this is Detective Amanda Lyle. I think we need to talk about your wife. That was the moment everything changed. Again, I froze. Detective? There was a beat of silence on the line, and then she said, it's about an incident involving Madison Green and her associate, Connor Blake. We believe you may have information. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, heartbeat in my throat. Incident. There was a report filed last night. A physical altercation. Witnesses say a man matching your description entered a motel room and assaulted Mr. Blake. I closed my eyes. I didn't assault him. He provoked me. I threw 2 punches and left. That's it. I'm not here to charge you, Mr. Green, she said, her tone steady. I'm here because Connor was found unconscious in that same motel room 4 hours later. Madison was gone. No fingerprints. No calls. Just gone. My pulse jumped. Unconscious? What the hell are you saying? I'm saying it's possible you were set up, and we need to find her. I didn't know what to say. My thoughts were ricocheting around like bullets. Last I saw Connor, he was on the floor holding his mouth and Madison was screaming at me to leave. I left. That's all. I left. Do you think she did something to him? We don't jump to conclusions, Mr. Green. But we also don't ignore patterns. She gave me a location to meet and a time. I hung up and just stood there, staring at the wall. Madison, again. Always 5 steps ahead, always slithering through cracks. I thought she betrayed me for lust. But maybe it was more than that. Maybe she had a plan. I got to the police station at 10 a.m., signed in, sat in a gray room that smelled like printer ink and cold coffee. Detective Lyle walked in. No nonsense, smart pantsuit, hair tied back like she hadn't slept in a week. She slid a photo across the table. Connor. Swollen face. Split lip. I shut. Bruised ribs. For in his arm. He hasn't woken up yet, she said. But he had traces of benzodiazepines in his blood. Sedatives. The kind that don't come from over the counter. My stomach turned. Why the hell would she drug him? I asked. Wasn't he the guy she left me for? Sometimes people aren't in on the plan, Lal said. Sometimes they're just pawns. She pulled out another photo. A different man. Bald. Thick neck. Tattoo of a serpent coiled around a dagger on his collarbone. Recognize him? I did. I'd seen him once. At a party Madison dragged me to 2 months ago. He was hanging near the bar, talking to her way too close while I was shaking hands with some tech investor. I thought he was just another random creep. That's Leo Vance, Lal said. Convicted for fraud in Nevada. Suspected of laundering money through crypto startups. You know how many shell companies are tied to Madison's name right now? My breath caught. Wait. What? 5. All created in the last 3 months. Guess where the emails trace back to? She slid a printed email header toward me. JasonGreenInvestments.com. My domain. She used my firm, my branding, to open fake companies and run transactions. The $20 million deal I celebrated? It was real. But she used my own infrastructure to build a shadow trail beneath it. I thought she ran away with a boy toy. Turns out she was building her own empire, with my name as the foundation. My head was spinning. She knew everything, I said quietly. She was in my office late. Had access to my computer. I thought she was helping. She was, Lal replied. Helping herself. I left the station that day feeling like someone had carved out my spine and left me standing. She hadn't just broken my heart. She tried to dismantle my entire life. I went straight to my office and locked the door. Chloe knocked twice. I told her I wasn't to be disturbed. Then I opened my laptop and started going through everything. Email logs. Activity history. Contracts. She was good. Subtle alterations. Hidden scripts and spreadsheets. Doctored IP logs. She'd been planning this for at least a year. And me? I was the idiot who kissed her goodnight every step of the way. That night, I sat on the balcony, city lights flickering like static below. I thought I knew pain. But this? This was betrayal at a surgical level. She hadn't just cheated on me physically, she'd erased me emotionally and tried to ruin me financially. And yet, deep down, some pathetic part of me still asked the question, why? Was I not enough? Did she ever love me? Or was I just the elevator she rode until she reached the floor she wanted? Then I remembered what the cops said. Sometimes they're just pawns. And suddenly, I knew. Connor wasn't the boyfriend. He was the distraction. She was working with someone else. And they were still out there. The next morning, I was already at the office before the sun came up. I didn't sleep, just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, every scene with Madison playing like a horror reel in my head. Every moment, every lie, every fake smile. And now, every click of her keyboard echoing in my skull. She wasn't just using me. She was building something in my shadow. Using my reputation, my success, to fund her exit, and God knows what else. I poured myself black coffee, logged into the firm's back-end systems, and got to work tracing her moves. One by one, I began untangling the shell companies she'd registered. Each had been cleverly disguised, generic names, fake CEOs, brief activity windows. Some had 1 or 2 real payments flow through them, just enough to make them look alive before they were folded, shut, or renamed. But the 5th one stood out, Clearwave Ventures. Registered just 2 weeks before she disappeared. Active. Still moving money. Still connected to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. And the signature on the last 2 wire transfers? Not Madison's. Not mine. It was someone else. Leo Vance. The bald guy. The one I saw that night at the party. The one who looked like he belonged in the back of a black SUV, not at a cocktail lounge with CEOs. Suddenly, everything clicked. Madison was never the mastermind. She was the recruiter. The gateway. She got close, built trust, softened me up, and then Leo moved in, invisible, silent, pulling the strings while she smiled and kept me blind. I picked up the phone and called Detective Lyle. She picked up after 2 rings. I found something, I said, barely recognizing my own voice. Clearwave Ventures. Cayman account. Wire transfers tied to Leo Vance. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you're sure? Positive. I'll escalate this, she said quickly. Stay put. And Jason, if you see Madison again, don't approach her. Let us handle it. I hung up and stared at the wall. Don't approach her. That was funny. Like I was capable of being rational around her anymore. Like I could just sip my coffee and let the cops handle it. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about finishing it. Because I finally saw what she really was, a shapeshifter. A woman who became whatever her target needed. Sweet. Supportive. Innocent. Seductive. Until she didn't need you anymore. I gave her everything. My money. My trust. My time. And she gave me a war. Around noon, Chloe walked in. I didn't hear her knock. Jason, she said gently. You okay? I nodded, even though I wasn't. She hesitated. There's someone here asking for you. My heart dropped. Who? A woman. Didn't give a name. Says she used to work with you. Says it's urgent. I stood slowly, fists tight. Where is she? Chloe gestured toward the conference room. I walked down the hall like I was marching toward a gunfight. And when I opened the door, I stopped cold. It wasn't Madison. It was someone else. Late 20s. Auburn hair. Nervous hands. She stood quickly when she saw me. Jason Green. Yeah, I'm Sarah, she said, voice cracking slightly. I used to work with Madison. Sort of. Not at your firm. With Leo. My blood froze. Why are you here? Because I think she's in trouble. Real trouble. And I don't think she knows what she's gotten into. I motioned for her to sit, hard hammering. Talk. I was part of Leo's setup last year. Crypto laundering. Fake consulting firms. It was easy money at first. Then things got darker. Threats. People disappearing. I tried to leave. Madison took my place. I sat across from her. She chose this. She didn't know, Sarah said. She thought she was in control. But Leo doesn't let people leave. And when he's done using them. She didn't finish. She didn't have to. That night, I sat alone again, staring at my phone. Waiting for a call. A headline. A mistake. And then it came. A number I didn't recognize lit up my screen. But the voice was hers. Jason. I made a mistake. I didn't speak. I need your help. Still silent. She sniffed. They're following me. Click. She was gone again. And I had a choice to make. I didn't move for almost a full minute. The phone was still in my hand, screen black, her voice echoing in my ears like a ghost whispering through a tunnel. I need your help. She had the nerve to ask me for help. After gutting me emotionally, dragging my name into the dirt, stealing my trust and reputation, then vanishing like a magician with the audience's wallet. Now she was crying? Now she remembered I existed? I should have blocked the number. I should have erased her voice from my memory. But instead, I hit call back. Straight to voicemail. I stared out the window of my office at the city skyline and realized something I hadn't before. This wasn't about her anymore. This was about me. About closure. About finishing a chapter one never got to end on my own terms. I texted the number. Where are you? A minute passed. Then 3. Then 10. Just as I was about to give up, my phone buzzed again. Burnside Motel. Room 204. Don't bring anyone. Classic Madison. Same type of dump she ran to last time. Different side of town this time, closer to East Hollywood, somewhere the cops don't patrol unless there's blood or screaming. I grabbed my coat, checked my glove box for the pepper spray I kept since we got robbed 3 years ago, and drove. The parking lot was empty except for 2 beat-up cars and a guy sleeping on a bench with a trash bag over him. I walked slowly up the metal staircase, every step groaning under my weight. Room 204. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Then slowly, The door creaked open, and there she was. Madison, hair pulled into a loose bun, makeup smudged, hoodie far too big for her frame. She looked thinner, not glamorous, not fierce, just scared, like a fox cornered by its own mistakes. I stepped in, letting the door shut behind me. She didn't move, just stared at me like she didn't believe I was real. "So," I said flatly, "here we are." "Jason," she whispered. I didn't know where else to go. "You went to a lot of places before this." She looked down, ashamed, maybe pretending to be. "I didn't know what Leo really was," she said. "I thought I was playing him. But he was always 5 steps ahead. He just used me to get to you." I scoffed. "And you were happy to help. Until the gun got pointed at you." Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't buy them. Not after everything. Not after the note, the fake boyfriend, the companies in my name. "I found the shell companies," I said. "Clearwave Ventures. Cayman accounts. Leo's name all over them. You think I'm an idiot?" "No," she said quickly. "No, Jason, you're not. That's the problem. You're too smart. Too careful. That's why he wanted to take you down." She started pacing, wiping her face. I thought if I could play both sides, I could walk away clean. "Set us up. I was going to come back. I swear I was going to come back. Set us up." I laughed. "Madison, you left a note that said, 'Good luck starting from scratch.' You didn't say, 'Wait for me.' You said goodbye." She was quiet. The air between us was heavy with everything unsaid. Then she whispered, "They're watching me. I've seen the same car 3 times today. They know I talked to someone. They know I reached out to you." I nodded slowly. "You didn't just run. You flipped." "I gave everything to a contact at Homeland," she said. "Bank records, crypto wallets, the whole network. But they told me I'm compromised now. Leo's paranoid. He thinks I'll talk more." "You will talk more," I said. "To the police. Tomorrow." Her voice cracked. "Jason, I need you." "No, you need a lawyer. Maybe a miracle. I came to you because I don't trust anyone else." I stared at her. This woman who'd once been my everything, now reduced to a ghost hiding in motels and begging for help from the man she ruined. And still, somewhere in the deepest, weakest part of me, I remembered the good. The sound of her laugh when she wasn't lying. The way she used to dance in the kitchen in socks. The woman I thought I married. But that woman was dead. "You'll come with me," I said quietly. "We'll go to the police. Now. And you'll tell them everything." She hesitated. Then she nodded. But as I turned to open the door, I caught something in the reflection of the hallway mirror, her hand slipping behind her back. A flash of metal. She lunged. And everything went black. Pain exploded in the side of my head like a sledgehammer. I hit the floor hard, ears ringing, vision flickering in and out. I could barely make out her silhouette standing over me, something heavy in her hand. Looked like the old iron lamp from the motel nightstand. My own blood was dripping into my eye, hot and sticky. "I didn't want to do that," she hissed through clenched teeth. "But you just don't listen." I tried to move, but my limbs felt disconnected. My left hand twitched against the floor. She stepped closer, breathing hard, pacing like she didn't know what to do next. "You weren't supposed to come back," she muttered. "You weren't supposed to be smart. You were just supposed to disappear into your business like always and let me go." I coughed, the taste of metal flooding my mouth. "Then why call me Madison?" I croaked. "Why pull me back into this mess?" She spun around, wild-eyed. "Because I didn't have a choice, Jason. They turned on me. Leo thinks I'm a traitor. The others are disappearing. I'm next. I thought maybe you'd still care enough to help." I laughed. I don't know how I had the strength, but I laughed. A dry, broken wheeze. "So your plan was to bash my skull in end. What? Steal my car? Try again with a new name." I panicked, she shouted. "I didn't mean to hit you that hard." She started pacing again, biting her nail, eyes darting to the window. "You don't get it," she said, almost whispering now. "Leo has people. Real people. Dirty feds. Ex-mercs. You think you can just call a detective and solve this? You think they're gonna protect me?" I needed a clean way out. "And you were my only shot." She turned and looked at me like I was supposed to understand. Like I was supposed to forgive. But something inside me shifted in that moment. Whatever shred of sympathy I had left burned out completely. "Call the cops," I muttered. "What? You want help? You want out? Call the cops." Her face twisted into something I couldn't even recognize. Some ugly hybrid of fear and hatred. "They won't get here in time." Then she did something that sent ice through my veins. She opened the closet. And out stepped Leo. I swear my heart stopped. He looked different. Cleaned up. Suit jacket. No tattoos showing. But those dead eyes? Same as I remembered. Cold. Calculating. Well, he said calmly, shutting the door behind him. That didn't go as smoothly as I told you, did it, sweetheart? Madison backed away, trembling now. You weren't supposed to follow me here. Leo smiled like a crocodile. I follow everyone, Madison. Then his eyes landed on me. Jason Green, he said, voice smooth as silk. I've heard a lot about you. I tried to push myself up, but my arms gave out. Leo walked over and knelt beside me. I gotta admit, you were a tough one to crack. Most men would have handed over the company by now. You got grit. I spat blood near his shoe. Go to hell. He chuckled. You first. Then, quick as a snake, he pulled a silenced pistol from his coat and pointed it at my chest. Wait. Madison screamed. You said we'd scare him, that's all. You said no bodies. Leo didn't look at her. Plans change. I stared up at the barrel. Cold sweat poured down my neck. This was it. Everything I built. Everything I lost. Ending here, in a motel room, on a bloodstained carpet. And then, bang. But it wasn't me who got hit. Leo jerked. Staggered. Looked down at his own stomach like he didn't believe it. Madison stood behind him, holding my gun. The one I kept in the glove box. She must have taken it while I was out. Leo collapsed like a puppet with its strings cut, gun sliding from his hand. Silence. Then Madison dropped the weapon and sank to the floor, sobbing. I lay there blinking at the ceiling, struggling to process what just happened. She saved me. After everything, she still saved me. But not out of love. Not out of guilt. She did it because she knew Leo wasn't just going to kill me. He was going to kill her, too. The room was silent except for Madison's sobs and my own shaky breathing. The iron lamp still lay on the floor, blood-streaked. Leo's body was crumpled near the foot of the bed, a slow dark pool spreading beneath him like a final signature. His eyes were open. Empty. I pushed myself up, groaning from the weight of my own body. My head throbbed, vision doubling for a second before snapping into place. Madison was crouched beside the wall, her back pressed to it like she was trying to disappear into the drywall. She didn't look at me. I staggered to my feet, leaned against the nightstand, and picked up my phone. Dialed. 911. What's your emergency? I stared at Madison while I spoke. My voice was flat. Cold. There's been a shooting at the Burnside Motel. Room 204. 1 dead. 2 survivors. Madison finally looked up. You're calling the cops on me? I didn't answer. The dispatcher kept talking. I gave the address, my name, told them to hurry. Then I hung up. You think you're the victim here? She hissed, wiping tears with the sleeve of that ridiculous hoodie. You don't know what I've been through. Leo would have killed me the moment I outlived my use. Then maybe, I said quietly, you shouldn't have helped him put a knife to my throat. She laughed bitterly. You always think you're the hero, don't you? I didn't respond. There was no point. We sat in that silence until the sirens began howling in the distance. She stood slowly, walked to the bed, and sat down with her hands on her knees like she was preparing for judgment. Her face had none of the defiance I'd seen earlier. No smugness. Just exhaustion. Do you hate me? She asked suddenly. I didn't even think about the answer. It came out like breath. No. I mourned you. And you don't mourn what you hate. She turned her head away. When the cops burst in, weapons raised, flashlights slicing through the air, neither of us moved. She didn't resist. I didn't speak. We were both already gone in our own ways. The next weeks passed like molasses mixed with broken glass. Interviews. Statements. Lawyers. Detective Lyle showed up to the hospital where they were stitching my scalp and taping my ribs. She said Madison's deal would depend on her cooperation and the data she turned over. That the Leo case might unravel something bigger. That the government might even sweep parts of it under the rug. I didn't care. I signed the divorce papers the moment they hit my desk. And then, I vanished. Not like Madison. Not in the middle of the night. I just walked away. From the firm. From LA. From everything that reminded me of her voice, her perfume, her poison. I moved up to a cabin in Northern California. Quiet. No marble floors. No skyline views. Just me and the wind through the pines. For the first time in a long time, I started remembering who I was before her. And what I learned. Sometimes, the person you love the most is the person designed to destroy you. And no matter how careful you are, how smart, how successful, you can still be fooled. Because love isn't about logic. It's a blindfold we tie on ourselves. But here's the truth no one tells you. You survive. You lose. You burn. You rebuild. And one day, you wake up and her face doesn't haunt you anymore. She becomes just another scar. Not a wound. Not a memory. Just a warning. So if you're reading this, and you're with someone who lies, manipulates, makes you question your own worth, walk away. Before you're the one bleeding on a motel floor, realizing the woman you trusted with everything almost ended your life, and then have the nerve to ask if you still loved her.